Okay, Mayor, thank you. Just give us one moment. Okay.
Thank you. It is 7:32 on Tuesday, May 24th. I will call to order the May 24th meeting of the Norwalk Common Council, and I will ask you to stand and join me in a moment of silence. I'm sorry, in a pledge to the flag, and please remain standing after. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. As you know, or most know, that today there was another tragic and senseless shooting in a town called Uvalde, Texas, which is approximately 83 miles west of San Antonio. The latest report is that 14 students and one adult or teacher perished. This is another example of gun violence in our country, totally unacceptable. It is time for national attention to these incidents. There have been more this year than in any past year. So obviously what is being done by the government, the United States government, is not working. And we need to band together and make sure that these senseless shootings stop. It was just last week when we were at the Green at a vigil over the shooting in Buffalo. It's a sad state of affairs, and we want to pray for the people of Uvalde, Texas, who have experienced the worst day in their entire lives. So I would ask that you join me for a moment of silence in memory of the 15 victims and perhaps more at Uvalde, Texas. May they rest in peace. Thank you. Clerk, if you will please call the roll.
Mr. Burnett.
Present.
Mr. Goldstein.
Here.
Ms. Johnson.
Present.
Ms. Majulski-Eichner.
Here.
Ms. Smith.
Here.
Ms. Ayers.
Here.
Mr. Ubelman.
Present.
Ms. Revoluz.
Here.
Ms. Young.
Here.
Mr. Kites. Ms. McMurr.
Present.
Ms. Alterman.
Here.
Mr. Keegan.
Here.
Mr. Livingston.
Here.
Ms. Shanahan.
Here.
14, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is the acceptance of the minutes of the regular meeting of May 10th, 2022. Do I have a motion? I'm not.
So moved, Mayor.
I'm not sure. My agenda says May 10th. That does, it would probably, yeah, it would be May 10th. I'm sorry. Do we have a motion? Ms. Shanahan moves. Any corrections, deletions, or omissions? Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. On page 11, I noticed that there's no mention of the motion. I believe it was unanimous. I'm not sure. One of my colleagues may be able to remind us. This is on page 11 for the motion moved by Mr. Kites under Economic Community Development Committee.
My recollection is that it's unanimous as well.
Any other corrections or deletions? Omissions? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of the minutes as corrected? Opposed? Abstentions? Ms. McMurr and Mr. Goldstein abstained. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is public participation. Mr. Manzi, do we have anybody wishing to address the council?
I do not see anyone, but if you'd like to address the council, please raise your hand now electronically and state your name and address for the record. I do not see anyone raising their hand, Mayor.
Does any council person receive correspondence that needs to be read into the record? Seeing none, I will close public participation. Resignations, and we have resignations. We have the resignation of Joseph A. Kramer from the pension board due to it is no longer possible for him to serve due to relocating and a new job that would, or a new regulation within his employment that does not allow him to serve on boards or commissions. Next, under appointments, we have 2 to the Water Pollution Control Authority. I believe we can move them together unless there's individuals that want to speak on either one. First is John Igneri, who we all know, Chris Manella, who we also know, to the Water Pollution Control Authority. Do I have a motion? Ms.
Yes,
Smith.
Mayor. And if I may speak to those appointments, please. I'm honored, of course, to move the appointment of John Igneri, who, as you said, we all know and have worked closely with over the years. Mr. Igneri is a committed public servant. He, as we know, has served on the Common Council. He's been the Common Council president, the majority leader, chair of the Public Works Committee, and he's been serving on the WPCA as the council appointee. And he is now moving to being a appointee, public appointee. So leaving the council appointee open, and that's something that we'll be hearing about, I think, in a couple of weeks. And so, it's just it's an honor to serve on the WPCA with Mr. Igneri and in this capacity. So I wholeheartedly support his appointment, and also the appointment of Christopher Manella, who brings his experience and expertise to the WPCA. He's project manager at FGB Construction. He's worked at King Industries, AJ Penna, local businesses. And so his expertise will be much appreciated on the WPCA, and we thank him for service.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Any further comments or discussion? Seeing none, I'm sorry. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next, appointment of Matthew J. Siebeck and Pamela Parkington to the Norwalk Parking Authority. Do I have a motion? Ms. Johnson.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to recuse myself, please.
Okay. No, please, for the record, note that Ms. Johnson has recused herself. Do I have a motion?
Mayor, I would like to make a
Burr?
motion. I am happy to move the appointment of Matthew Siebeck and Pam Parkington. Matthew Siebeck has extensive professional experience when it comes to managing and working with a team, managing finances, and negotiating RFP contracts. In his career, he has maximized profitable revenue streams and managed budgets in the multi-millions of dollars. He is a member of the Veterans and Foreign Wars Advisory Military and Veteran Liaison Committee and sits on the board of directors of the Workplace LLC. I think he would be a wonderful addition to the Parking Authority, and I'm pleased to move him forward. With regards to Pam Parkington.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's okay. With regards to Pam Parkington, she held her most recent professional role as the finance, HR, and admin officer at the New Canaan Library, where she worked for a decade. She has an extensive background in finance and bookkeeping and has prepared and participated in annual audits. In addition to her financial background, she has vast experience working with a team, negotiating contracts, and handling employee intakes, benefits, and pensions. Since 2017, she has volunteered as the 3rd Taxing District Commissioner. And on a personal note, Pam is one of the most straightforward and honest people I have ever met, which I adore about her. I am proud to move Pam Parkington forward for the Parking Authority, as I feel she would be a wonderful asset.
Thank you, Ms. McMurray. Any further comments or discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I would just like to add to what my council colleague has already said about the two names raised, and particularly Pam Parkington, who has a way of being a breath of fresh air and has a way of organizing people and getting the job done. And I'm excited on these 2 names that are being lifted as we are in a crucial time in our parking authority. And I think they will both just be the taste of medicine that we need to fix some of the complaints that we have had with our parking authority, to bring them from ordinary to extraordinary. And again, Pam Parkington can do anything that Pam Parkington puts her mind to. So I just wanted to support the nomination of both of these individuals. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Ayers. Ms. Smith.
Yes, I'd just like to add regarding Pam that I just thrilled that you're stepping up to this position. And Pam does not mince words. She tells it like it is, and she will really do a great job on the Parking Authority, much needed. So thanks, Pam, for joining.
Thank you, Mr. Goldstein.
Yeah, I must say, I agree. I love Pam Parkington. I also think it's a good city policy to appoint people whose names so utterly match the commissions to which they're being appointed. So Pam Parkington to the Parking Authority makes a lot of sense. And I love Pam, and I wholeheartedly support your nomination, as well as Mr. Siebeck's.
Well, if that's the case, then I guess I'd have to appoint Mr. Siebeck to the Seaport Authority.
Yes.
I couldn't resist that. I'm sorry. Any further comment or discussion? Thank you. Seeing none, all in favor of the 2 appointments, please raise your hand. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. I see Mr. Siebeck and Pam Parkington both here. Thank you both for your willingness to serve. If you will present yourselves at the city clerk's office at some point in the very near future, you will be administered your oath of office, and you will take on your responsibilities. So again, thank you so much. Next item on the agenda, mayor's remarks. As it has been for the past 2+ years, the topic of discussion is the COVID-19 virus. Right now, Norwalk's recent case rate is 36.8 per 100,000 residents. We are moving very rapidly towards the red level, and unfortunately, that will put us in the top level with the most of the state and many other states and many other regions of the country. We're encouraging people to continue doing the things that the CDC and the scientists recommend. Please, if you haven't been vaccinated, please consider getting vaccinated. Get boosted. If you are eligible, get the second booster. Wear your mask. Avoid large groups if you can. If you're in public and in a public place where there's going to be a lot of people, consider wearing your mask. I know there's versions of whether the masks help or whether they don't. But I think it's pretty obvious based on the science that the masks are something that you should consider wearing. We are going to be doing vaccines available at Vets Park on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, vaccines at Vets Park. Testing is still available at the lower level parking lot of Lockwood Matthews Mansion on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays from 2 to 5, and Saturdays from 10 to 2. All this information can be found on the city website, health department website. So please use good protocols, and hopefully eventually we can defeat this thing. Also, if you saw the press conference the other day, Thanks to the effort of Senator Duff and the Norwalk delegation of Mr. Sims, Ms. Dathan, Mr. Perrone, and Ms. Thomas, the city of Norwalk has received since the beginning of the COVID, $296 million investment in our community. It's investment in infrastructure, investment in our schools, investment in our businesses. This money it represents a 30% increase in the money that we've received in the past over the past couple of years. The biggest thing that is going to be a significant help to the city of Norwalk and pretty much transformative is the fact that we are now, instead of a 23% reimbursement rate from the state of Connecticut for schools, whether it's renovation or build as new or renovate as new, we will be getting 60% reimbursement. As you know, that's going to be a game changer because we have a 25-year plan of investing approximately $625 million in our Norwalk public schools so that our students can have a good place, a place that they can go that's comfortable and of which they can be proud. Our teachers, the same. And alone, we're building, we'll be having an announcement tomorrow relative to the South Norwalk School. The council's invited to attend. That's building that school alone with a 60% reimbursement is going to save us $25 million. Instead of getting $14 million, well, actually 26 million, instead of getting 14 million for the reimbursement, we will be getting 40 million. It's a significant game changer. And again, I can't stress strongly enough how we owe a great debt of gratitude to our state delegation for all they've done. I want I forgot to mention, I believe, Lucy Dathan, who is also a part of this, and she's done a remarkable job as well. And we want to thank State Representative now, Stephanie Thomas. I get everything all mixed up, but State and Governor Lamont. He has been a really good friend for Norwalk and has invested. And when the state starts investing in a city like they're investing in Norwalk, we know that they're recognizing who we are and what we bring to the state of Connecticut, the economy, the tourism, the businesses, all the things that Norwalk represents is a tremendous boost to the state of Connecticut. And it's starting to be recognized and noticed. And we are, I like to say, Norwalk is on the rise. So having said all that, again, thanks to our state delegation, thanks to Senator Duff, thanks to the governor himself. And now we are in the month of May, we are celebrating Haitian Heritage Month and Haitian Flag Day. I have issued a proclamation and I will turn the floor over to Ms. Revolus so she can read that.
Thank you, Mayor.
And any other comments you'd like to make?
Okay. Well, first, I would just like to say thank you again to you and to Norwalk. And this is a great honor to be able to read this proclamation, being the first Haitian American councilwoman for Norwalk, Connecticut. And also just because of the wonderful engagement that we've received for people who are inquisitive and who are asking about the history of Haiti. And I'm seeing articles. I hope that this gives a little bit more information about us as a country and as a people that live here. So on the start, the proclamation, Haitian Heritage Month and Flag Day. Let me give a second. I don't speak Creole well, so please don't kill me for butchering some words. That being said, May 20, 2022, whereas May 18th, 2022 marks the 219th anniversary of the Haitian Flag Day. Haiti's first flag was sewn by the lady named Kathleen Flan at the Congress of Alcahe. And whereas one of the primary symbols of Haitian freedom is the Haitian flag created in Alcahe, a town located outside of Port-au-Prince, on May 18, 1803. Since then, May 18th has been observed as a Haitian Flag Day, as it has become a symbol of pride, unity, and individual liberty. In Haiti, Flag Day is a major national holiday celebrated on the grounds of the National Palace and all cities in and around the world. And whereas the white stripe was eliminated from the French flag, while the remaining red and blue bands were attached together, the removal of the white strip symbolizes the abolishment of the white man's control and the unity of the Black and mulattoes in Haiti. The arms are composed of the palm tree, surmounted by a Floridian cap of liberty and adorned with trumpets, with a band across the bottom saying, "Union fait la force." Through unity, there is strength. And whereas by this gesture, they publicly designated that the country no longer wanted to be recognized as a French territory. And the people who lived there on this land preferred to be dead rather than be slaves. Liberté or les mort means liberty or death, has become the new motto, and it has already been embraced at the ceremony of Bon Caïman, held on August 14th, 1791. And whereas the culture and tradition of Haitian Americans that are growing in Norwalk are an inspirational source of growth among all men and women of Haitian descent. As we celebrate the Haitian Flag Day and Haitian Heritage Month, we need to remember that our ancestors created this bicolored blue and red flag as a symbol of unity among all of us of Haitian descent to fight colonialism and live forever free. Now, thereas Harry W. Riling, Mayor of the City of Norwalk, Connecticut, recognizes and celebrates with the Haitian American Collaborative and the Haitian community for their exponential contributions to our city, and do hereby proclaim Wednesday, May 18th, 2022 as Haitian Flag Day and May 2022 as Haitian Heritage Month in Norwalk, and in so doing, recognize the contributions that the Haitian American community has made to our city and urge all citizens to come together in unity to celebrate our heritage and their heritage and culture, in witness whereof I have set my hands and caused the seal of the City of Norwalk, Connecticut, to be affixed on this 24th day of May, 2022. Harry W. Riling, Mayor, City of Norwalk, Connecticut. Thank you, and I appreciate the proclamation and the acknowledgement of our third largest community in Norwalk, and honestly ask for those who want to understand to truly get engaged, get informed, and understand the persecutions we're still dealing with now for being one of the first Black Republic. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Revolus. And if you drive past Heritage Wall or Heritage Park, Thomas O'Connor Park, Greg and Mr. Burnett and I had the honor of joining Ms. Revolus to raise the Haitian flag last week. So again, thank you. And with that, I will turn the floor over to the Council President, Mr. Livingston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Revolus, for the proclamation reading. It's really appreciated all you've done there for the community. Tonight's consent calendar will be read by Councilperson McMurray.
Thank you, President Livingston. 7A, Finance and Claims Committee. 7A1, accept and approve the report of the Claims Committee dated May 12, 2022. 7A2, for informational purposes only, narrative on tax collections dated May 9th, 2022. 7A3, for informational purposes only, monthly tax collectors report dated April 2022. 7B, Recreation, Parks, and Cultural Affairs Committee. 7B1, Authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter into an agreement with NICE for the use of Oyster Shell Park and immediate surrounding grounds for their 6th annual NICE Festival event to be held on Saturday, July 9th, 2022, from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m., set up to begin at 5 a.m. with tear down at 11:59 p.m. Approximate attendance, 500 plus people. 7B2. Authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter into an agreement with Youth Business Initiative for the use of Veterans Park and immediate surrounding grounds for their Community Day basketball tournament event to be held on Saturday, July 23rd, 2022, from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Set up to begin at 7 a.m. with tear down at 6 p.m. Rain date, Sunday, July 24th, 2022. Approximate attendance, 300 people. 7B3. Authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter into an agreement with Norwalk Seaport Association for the use of Veterans Park and immediate surrounding grounds for their Seaport Festival Lobster Bake event to be held on Saturday, August 27th, 2022, from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. Set up to begin at 9 a.m. with tear down at 11 p.m. Approximate attendance, 500 people. 7B4. Authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter into an agreement with William Ravis Charitable Fund for the use of Calf Pasture Beach and immediate surrounding grounds for their Ravis Ride and Walk 2022 event to be held on Sunday, September 18th, 2022, from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. Set up to begin at 5 a.m. with tear down at 3 p.m. Approximate attendance, 400 people. And that is the consent calendar.
Thank you, Ms. McMurray. We should make you do it again because it's so short. Unless there's any objection, I'll call for a vote on the calendar as read. All in favor, indicate by raising your hand. Any opposed? Abstentions? It passes unanimously. Okay, back to you, Ms. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Livingston. I believe that all the items are on consent. Did I miss anything?
Yeah, the one item is on Mr. Burnett's.
Okay, so item 7A4. Okay, 7A4, Mr. Burnett, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Under the Finance and Claims Committee, item 7A4 reads as follows: resolution making appropriations for various public improvements aggregating $38,983,540 for the fiscal year 2022-2023 capital budget and authorizing the issuance of $38,983,540 general obligation bonds of the city to make certain appropriations in the fiscal year 2022-2023 capital budget. And I'd like to speak to that and also present our Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Henry Dakowitz, to speak more to this item. In moving this resolution, last month we approved the capital budget and we went through the details of the capital budget. This is the next phase of the capital budget process, which is securing the necessary funds to basically to pay the bills for the projects and the various capital items that we approved in the capital budget. So with that, I will pass the baton to our Chief Financial Officer, who will take us through the bonding process that will occur later on during the summer.
Thank you, Mr. Burnett. It really is the end of a very long budget season. What happens is we start with requests from all the departments. I come out with the CFO's recommendation. The Planning Commission has their recommended capital budget. The mayor then comes out with his capital budget recommendation. The Board of Estimate and Taxation establishes a cap on what the capital budget is. And then it comes to your good folks, where staying within that cap, you're allowed to shift some of the numbers. I believe 3 projects were adjusted, but stayed within the total. You then, a month ago, approved those projects, those dollars for this year's capital projects. This is the last step, which authorizes me, acting as Chief Financial Officer, to issue general obligation bonds for the city of Norwalk in order to pay for these projects. There's a nuance that I've been describing that I want to review, because it may be different than some people's understanding. We approve these capital projects year by year in the budget process. And the last step is to authorize the chief financial officer to borrow the money. We do not borrow the money based on the annual budget. According to IRS rules, when we borrow tax exempt funds, there are requirements, one of which is that we must spend those funds within a certain spend down period, normally within 2 to 4 years. If we do not spend the money expeditiously like that, the penalties are numerous and can range up to declaring our bonds taxable. So it's very important for us to understand how those funds will be used. Consequently, what's more significant is the actual cash flow projections that we will use the funds. So about 2 years ago, Shitsume Lamb, our controller, and I have gone out to all of the department heads or chiefs who are in charge of these capital projects. And we ask them for a rolling 2-year forecast. We do this every quarter. And we say, how much money do you expect to spend on the expenditures of the project? And how much money do you expect to receive when we might get a reimbursement, most notably from the state? We look at those net expenditures of funds, and that is the basis for what we borrow. So on one hand, I don't want to borrow more than the expected expenditures. We might fall into the penalties with the IRS. On the other hand, I don't want to borrow too little funds when project managers may say, it's the summertime, I have to do the project. I had authorization, we had purchase orders, we now have invoices. You've got to pay those bills. I don't want to say I'm out of capital funds. So we look at those estimates and we determine the size of our borrowing each year. The last time we looked at the estimates was as of December 31st, 2021. And according to the projections, it was expected in quarters 3 and 4 of this current fiscal year 22, ending June 30 of 2022, that the capital expenditures net of reimbursements would total $48.6 million. At the same time, at December 31st, we had $56.7 million of unexpended bond funds remaining to pay for those bills. So I feel very comfortable. We have sufficient funds for what's expected to be expended without too much of a buffer. So I call that a wash. We then looked at the next 12 months, the 4 quarters beginning July 1st, 2022 through June 30th of 2023, fiscal year 23. And we said, of the existing projects that have already been approved, how much do you expect to spend? And the total came out to about $60 million. So we need to borrow $60 million to satisfy those needs. You may recall I have said for a while that we have a total of $220 million net of capital expenditures that have been approved, authorized and approved, for which we have not borrowed the money. This $60 million is coming out of that $220 million of prior approved projects. However, we also have this year's newly approved capital projects. The total of the projects, as was read before, is $38.9 million. Out of that $38.9 million, it is anticipated, we went back to the people managing those projects, It is anticipated that the net expenditures in fiscal year 23 for the new projects will be about $30 million. So on April 8th, I sent a memo to the mayor laying this out and explaining that I am recommending that we borrow $90 million during this year's annual borrowing. We normally borrow during the summer. That would be sufficient to satisfy the requests and projections that the project managers have indicated without being excessive and falling into a problem with the IRS. You may also recall our financial advisor, Bill Lindsay, and I did an analysis that said that once we have a total outstanding balance of about $400 million, our AAA bond rating may be in jeopardy. We currently have $280 million outstanding. We will probably have about 20 million that mature and get paid off this year. So we have a capacity of about 120 million plus the 20 maturing, 140 before we get to that $400 million zone. So the 90 million uses up much of our capacity, but does not get us to the 400 million yet. The second key ratio we look at is the ratio of debt service expense to our total operating budget. Debt service is another term for what you might be familiar with, which is called principal and interest. When you borrow money on a mortgage for 30 years and you make a monthly payment, that payment is composed partially of a repayment of principal and partially of the interest to reimburse the lender for lending you the money. Our debt service currently is at about 9.5% of our total operating expenses. When we analyze the financial data for both AAA and AA cities in Connecticut, we find that when that percentage exceeds 10%, it's another indicator the rating agencies use to say maybe you're not a AAA credit anymore. The challenge we're having now, I don't have to explain, you're all aware of the inflation. Let me put it into concrete terms for our borrowing for bonds. Last summer, we borrowed $50 million, a 30-year term, at an all-in cost of 2%. Right now, 10 months later, we're looking at an increase of 2%. I would expect that the borrowing this summer will be somewhere between 3.75% and 4%. And the 50 million we borrowed last year was the largest we have borrowed historically that I'm aware of. So here's our challenge. We're almost doubling the amount of debt that we're borrowing, and we're doubling the interest rate which we are paying. So our debt service will climb significantly. And that's what we're trying to balance. So I just wanted to put it in perspective. Although the approval for this year's capital budget was only $40 million, we will be borrowing 30 out of that 40, which the project managers have indicated that they will need for the next 12 months. And we're also borrowing about 60 million to pay for the projects that were already approved, and the managers have estimated that's what they will need to pay their expenditures. So we're getting into the territory I've indicated, which is risky. And of course, not just with the inflation, but if we lose our AAA rating and it goes down to AA, there's another penalty and we have to pay a higher interest rate. So that's the context. And I appreciate the approval that allows me to borrow these funds, and I'm ready to answer any questions.
I will say one thing, adding to what Henry said. We watch very closely the expenditure of our capital funds by our departments, just like we watch the operating budget, making sure that projects can be completed. You know, there's sometimes you might not be able to complete projects and so forth. So we have to adjust things as we go along as well. But as Henry said, we only have so much time that we can, within which to spend the money that we've bonded. So, but it's a work in progress where we continue to watch, continue to see where we might find some savings, et cetera. So thank you, Henry. Any other questions for Henry? Mr. Burnett, did you have anything?
Not at this time, Mr. Mayor. The Finance Committee, especially after our last meeting and presentation from our Chief Financial Officer and bond consultant, Bill Lindsay, will begin to look at line by line each of the capital budget items to identify any recommendations in terms of possible changes to the time schedule so that we can have more time to address these issues as it relates to what I'll call our capital budget cap related to how much we can actually borrow. So that's a initiative that we'll take on at the Finance Committee level.
Okay, thank you. If there are no other questions or comments, I will call the vote. All in favor of item 7A4, please raise your hand. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Mr. Livingston, I believe you have an item.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move to suspend the rules to add a new item regarding the renewal of a private property police training right of entry. Do you want me to read the item first or?
Yeah, why don't you read? Well, let's vote to go off the agenda and then we'll vote to add the item.
Okay.
So all in favor of going off the agenda to add an item regarding police training? All opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Livingston?
Thank you. I'll read the item and then speak to it. Reauthorize the Mayor, Harry W. Rilling, upon recommendation and advice by the City of Norwalk's Corporation Council and/or Assistant Corporation Council to enter into no-charge agreements for use and access of private property located in the City of Norwalk for police training purposes through the third Tuesday of November 2023. See Common Council's October 22nd, 2019 agenda at section 7A4 and enclosed memorandum of Thomas Kahalik dated September 4th, 2019 attached to said agenda. Just briefly, and then I'll let Attorney Callahan speak to this. This is an item that normally would have gone through the Public Safety Committee, but it came up at the last minute because the police department has a rare opportunity to use a piece of private property for training purposes. We've allowed this in the past, and what this resolution would do would allow them, the police department, to take advantage of this unique opportunity, which I'm told would expire this week, as well as to permit them, the police department that is, to take advantage of similar opportunities that may come up in the next year. And I'll add, let Mr. Attorney Callahan add to that and give a little bit more background.
Yeah, thanks, Councilman Livingston. There's not much more to add here other than to probably underscore that for training purposes, the MPD needs access to facilities suitable for real life condition scenarios. And that's particularly true with respect to specialized tactical training. And I'm sure if Chief Kowalik or the deputy chiefs were here, they would have emphasized that and expounded upon it. Again, as Councilman Livingston said, the MPD is approached from time to time from developers who, acquire property for redevelopment and plan on, raising the properties. They're demolishing the properties. They're kind enough to offer it up to the police department, to basically go in and do this training because the property is going to be demolished anyways. So it presents a really unique scenario. Otherwise, they have to go into the commercial market to utilize, facilities to mimic real life scenarios. So in that way, it truly is a very unique thing, and it's quite significant and nice that developers in our communities think enough to offer up these properties. It presents, I think, it may not be typical in other communities, but we're seeing it here organically. So I guess a testament to our police force and the willingness of developers to offer up access to their properties for this purpose. So again, as Councilman Livingston said, this is a problem that was came up previously, and there's just a very short window of time between that. Developer can they want to develop the property, so there's usually a short window of time where say, hey, you can use it, but we're going to demolish it. And so to go through the process for each one of these, the delay ends up resulting in a missed opportunity, which they're far and few between. So it's problematic. So really, this was a problem and a timing issue that was recognized by the prior council, which some of you were members of, and really, the request of the PD here is really just to reauthorize it or renew it effectively, forward for an additional 2 years. And if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, and adding to that, just as the incident today in Texas, as well as the incident last week in Buffalo and all the other incidents around the country that we've witnessed, the training for police officers is paramount in order to be able to respond to these changing times. The response of police officers, which I won't get into publicly, but there are tactics being used right now that are deployed in order to allow the officers to stop whatever action is occurring as quickly as possible. And this is these buildings will be used for that purpose. So it's critical that we keep our police department prepared to respond to whatever is going to be happening throughout the city. So are there any other comments or questions? Ms. Revolus?
No, you have hands raised. Nicole
Okay, I'm
Ayers
sorry.
and
Yeah, I
Greg
didn't look
Burnett.
up the side. Ms.
No.
Ayers?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Darren, I think you said it, but I just want to make clear. I might have missed it. You're saying that this agreement is for them to have access to this private property for technical training for a 2-year period of time?
Yeah, so the prior one expired in November of 2021, so this would just carry it forward to November of 2023. The thinking then, as it is now, is that that's when the council, that's the election cycle for the council, and that at the time come back and ask for another reauthorization.
And is this the same property that they have used previously?
No, these are always going to be different properties because the developer buys them and redevelops the property that they acquire into something new. And so the buildings that are on there that could be utilized get demolished. And that presents the timing issues. They acquire it, they want to redevelop as fast as possible. And so they want to put shovels in the ground and they need to demolish the property. And so they said, what happens is the developer says, hey, you can use it, but only the next week or two scenario.
So Ms. Ayers, this property won't be used for 2 years. This property will be used and then it will be demolished. This agreement will allow the police department to accept other offers that may come along without having to come back to the council.
Yes,
Okay, and
blanket authorization.
these are private properties that have made themselves available for this type of training. Is that my understanding?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Burnett?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to confirm that if I'm reading the request correctly, there's no cost to the city in terms of approving this access. And as Attorney Callahan stated, there's actually a savings because there's no need to go to commercial properties where there would be an expense. So I just wanted to confirm that and get clarity on that we're actually saving by approving this action.
You are correct.
Thank you.
Any further comment or discussion? I'll look for the hands this time. Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously.
Bef-
Yes, Ms. Revelous?
Before I call for a motion to adjourn, can I just ask for, I just wanted to say two things. In your office, thank you so much to Sally Johnson. She's amazing. And her abilities with the collaborative over our 10 years, she's just an asset that we do appreciate in your office.
I will relay that
Secondly,
to her.
yeah, secondly, seeing that we were celebrating and closing for the month of Haitian heritage, we ended with the celebrations of Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day to all of you out there who are Haitian or Haitian American. And then thirdly, motion to adjourn.
Mr. Revelous made a motion to adjourn. It is now 8:23. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? We are adjourned. Thank you all.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.
Thank you.